Welcome to Pivot Parenting, where we help parents of teens overcome regret and disappointment to find peace and connection in every situation. I'm Heather Frazier, your parenting expert. Journey with me to discover effective parenting tips, improve family relationships, and build a brighter future for your kids. Buckle up, things are about to get better. Hello, my friend. Welcome to Pivot Parenting today. I have some really exciting information for you that will hopefully benefit yourself and your children. Before we get started, I have some more reviews I would love to share with you. This one is from Completely Karen, 5 stars. Heather is like the parenting whisperer. She teaches you how to show up with love for your kids, even in the hardest situations. Having confidence in my parenting has made huge strides in my relationship with my kids, and I can thank this podcast for so much of that help. Thank you. Another really great one is from Canvas Falcon, another 5-star. It says, very insightful, well worth looking into. Thanks, Heather, for putting up so many wonderful episodes with such insightful content. Keep up the great work. Thank you, my friends. I really appreciate that. Reviews are really important for getting my podcast in front of new listeners, and it makes me so happy to hear from you as well. I want to spend 3 to 4 hours a week in service of you, and that's about how long it takes me to do every episode. To create this show for you, even though it only lasts about 30 minutes, it takes me several hours to think of relevant topics and write what I want to say and then record and produce and publish the episodes. And so I really love hearing that it is worth my efforts. There are several ways that you can help me spread the word and help even more parents. If you like this podcast, you can review and rate it wherever you listen. You could send it to a friend or family member if you think they would appreciate it. You can share it on social media. Like if you listened to my number 1 episode called Lying Teens and you really liked it, you could put it on Instagram or Facebook, tag me, and share that episode. That would be amazing. You can also subscribe to the show. All of these things help more people to find it. And it really makes me happy. Because I love hearing that how I spend hours every week is making a difference. So let's talk about today's episode. Labeling our kids. With school in full swing, I've been talking to a lot of other parents, like on my daughter's tennis team or at parent-teacher conference or just with friends on TV, and I'm seeing this a lot. And I actually started this conversation on labeling our kids, or an adjacent conversation too, a long time ago when I did an episode on how parents objectify their kids. And this is a long-awaited sister episode to that episode 144. So it was almost 100 episodes ago, almost 2 years ago. And it's just titled Objectification. And that episode is kind of the starting point. You can listen to them independently, but if you like this content, you'll probably like the content of that episode as well. I'm going beyond today where I began in episode 144 in that episode. And it's in one really common yet specific area that I see parents causing themselves pain and suffering and their child harm. So let's talk about how labeling our teens objectifies them and harms their self-worth, because it's really important that we understand this. The easiest way that I can think of this, of getting my point across, is by observing how we have been objectified or labeled, because we all have been labeled. And knowing how that feels and how it is done to us can then help us better recognize how it's done to our children. So I'm going to
hit on some very common ways that we label one another. For women, we are most labeled by our beauty or our helpfulness. By men, we are most labeled by income and job status. Now, if we like those things about ourselves, we don't mind the label. But if we don't like those things about ourselves, it can hurt. And even when we like the label, it can still be harmful. My husband is a physician, and a lot of his partners struggle in retirement because they have lost a piece of their identity, because they don't feel as important because of the label that they really liked. They thought that it was a nice, important, fancy label. When we look beyond how just women and men are typically labeled, we can look at adults, how we objectify and label each other. It can sound like a Karen, a doctor, a mom, a dad. It can be off of our body or appearance, like you're short, tall, fat, skinny, ugly, pretty. It can be off of socioeconomic, middle class, poor, rich, gold digger, or by race. And these are just the most mild ones that I could come up with. Spicy Latinas. I don't really like that label. My son lives in China right now, and ABC is a really common label. It means American-born Chinese. White trash. The frugality that is typically associated with Jews. The list only gets worse, how we label one another based off of what we see going on. And we do this for our kids, and we can even combine them, like poor white trash. So we're mixing up color, socioeconomic, where they live, trailer trash, right? Let's look at our kids and the labels that we throw around like facts about our children. Your kids, my kids, their friends for sure. Kids in the neighborhood. We have the golden child. Now, some people would argue that that's a really great label. I disagree. That's a terrible label. The problem child, equally terrible. Black sheep, rebel, lazy, moody, angry, liar, sneaky, perfectionist, gossip, drama queen, shy, the druggie, the nerdy kid. Basically, you could picture a teen movie where like the new kid is being introduced, like Legally Blonde or Mean Girls, and they're going around the lunchroom labeling all the tables where this new kid could potentially join in. So you've got the jocks, the popular kids, the theater kids, the stupid kids, which just actually means that the school system is failing them and they're struggling. Defiant kids, troubled kids, always happy kids, the friendly kid, the peacemaker. Again, the easiest way to see how labels impact your kid is to see how they have impacted you. And so I want you to take a minute. You can even pause this episode for 30 seconds or however long. How were you labeled? What were you told as a kid? Was it based off how you dressed? Your grades? Your body? When we tell our kids they're such a peacemaker, thank you for always being the peacemaker, we think we're praising them, and they might feel complimented and praised. But they're also learning that to not advocate for themselves is desirable. So then they will self-abandon more and more often to please. This is just like a kid who is seen as lazy, and so he doesn't even want to try because he's lazy and nothing is going to change. People are going to treat him the same way regardless of the effort he puts in. And I just want to let you know there are not lazy teenagers. So if you think you have a lazy teen, please reach out and we can talk it over. Our kids absorb our words as the truth, especially if we have started very young. They own all of the characteristics that we tell them they are, for better or for worse. Golden children, for example, can want to keep this status at all costs and will lie and deceive to maintain their facade, for example. No matter the label that we use, more than anything, they are more than the things that we have noticed about them: habits, quirks, preferences, good and bad. And keeping their identity tied to only invaluable, worthy of love is where we want to stay. And just to emphasize what a label is, I guess I should have led with this, is saying you are. It is identifying a feature as something innately tied to that person's identity. And so when I say the only thing we want to tie their identity to is being invaluable and always worthy of love, those are the things that stay no matter what. Even if we can't recognize it in our children, they can't recognize it in themselves, nobody else can recognize it in them, those are still facts. They are of infinite value and always worthy of love. And so by saying, good job on your homework, I can see you worked really hard, is not labeling, whereas saying, you are so smart, is labeling. Saying you look beautiful is different than saying you are beautiful. Saying, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't ever say you are, but we need to be really careful when we choose to say you are, because it is telling that person that that is who they are as an individual and not something that they have power over or control over. So thank you for being so kind to your brother. That was a very kind act versus you are a peacemaker. Does that make sense? Because then we are giving our child autonomy into choosing who they want to be rather than just stating who they are based off of what we are observing. You are so lazy versus, I noticed that I've asked you to clean your room and you haven't. Tell me what's going on for you. So we want to be really clear, and I'll give more examples throughout the episode, but we want to be very clear instead of saying you are, that's a label. We want to talk specifically about the action or inaction or whatever it is that we are observing as separate from our child, a decision or something that they have autonomy over, because that puts them in a more powerful position.
Hi there. I just want to pause and let you know if you are struggling to make sense of your teen's behaviors, emotions are running wild, and you're looking to turn things around to have the family you dreamed of while rocking them to sleep, I would love to talk to you. I want to give you a special, powerful gift. 30 minutes with me, my friend. You'll walk away with more confidence, clarity, and understanding of what the issue is and your next best step in resolving any situation you bring to me. It's completely free. I love families and want to help yours be wildly happy and successful. Book this call by visiting my website, heatherfraser.com. Remember, Fraser is spelled with a Z-I in the middle. And don't worry, the link is also in the show notes. I look forward to meeting and helping you.
All right, so let's recognize how ego-based patterns create this dynamic. And I know that that doesn't seem automatically like it matches. What does our ego have to do with labeling our kids or other people? But ego here, in my point of reference to the point and where I want to draw your attention, is that I am the center. I am the lead role kind of ego, main character energy, as my kids call it. And that's not bad until we think that others are supporting characters and they are not also main characters. They are without being their own center. We tend to flatten, in a way, others to one or a few labeled dimensions when we focus on their tendencies or what we have labeled them as. It's what bugs me about people. What do they have that would benefit me? How are they a threat to me? Or however they interact with that characteristic that you've labeled as part of their identity. How does that affect you as the main character? Do you see how that's looking at others as like a subservient or less than role to you? That is ego. Let me give you a concrete example. Your son's rude friend. They never really speak to you, but they eat all your food, they leave a mess, they get your kid to be late for curfew quite often. They're the bad example friend. Our natural tendencies are to just see them as this trouble. What you don't know is that this kid lives with food scarcity at his house. His parents fight all the time. His mom is always buzzing on something. He has anxiety, and the list goes on. He is more than the symptoms that we label. He is more than the symptoms of these wounds. But we have to drop our ego, see how a main character that he is would behave like that. We need to humanize him to see past what we've labeled him as, to see him as a real human. We have to drop our ego of this is my world and you guys are all just parts in it and you need to get your part right. That's what we don't want to do. That's ego. That causes a lot of problems and it gives us a false sense of superiority. And that makes it really hard to see past the troubled kids in our life or the perfectionistic kid. A lot of parents will say, my kid is awesome. Everybody always says how accommodating they are and how responsible they are. And those labels we tend to not look at as closely, but those can also be red flags of anxiety, of OCD, of a lot of other things. And so we want to be really careful, even on that side, that if the label our kid is getting feeds our ego, they're always so accommodating. Every teacher just loves having them in class. That's good unless it's not. And we want to look past the golden student label to make sure that there isn't something underneath more nefarious. And we have to do that by questioning, again, why that child isn't owning being a main character if they aren't in all of those ways. And parents are the best ones to know how to do this because they know their child and they're the ones that have hands on with them. I'm happy to walk you through this. I do this with my clients all the time. But we want to recognize the ego-based patterns that drive labeling and thus harm. Now let's talk about the 5 steps to stop the cycle of labels and objectification to foster a healthier relationship with your teenager. Number 1, we got to recognize, and this is a process that you never complete, just so you know. But to start off, I want you to take a week or 2 and watch your words, journal, look for patterns, repetitions, and observe how they make you feel about that person or about yourself. Then you want to ask yourself, what is true? If the label is true, is your kid really lazy? Why do you think that's true? What's going on? Or how is it false? And then what else is true about that person? Well, I also know that they have a lot of anxiety. Could that be true? Could it be true that they struggle in school? Could it be true that things are going on in school that maybe you don't know about? Get to know that person better if necessary, and it usually is, because we're looking to identify a main character here. Why would our protagonist, our hero, behave this way? What's going on? They aren't just dumb as rocks, or they aren't just perfect. What else could be going on here? Then number 3, we want to do this for ourselves. How do you label yourself? Maybe you say, I'm very healthy, or I'm lazy, or I'm smart, or I'm unreliable. I have a bad sense of time. I'm very crafty, whatever it is. Typically, we judge ourselves similarly to how we are looking at others. So when you improve labels that you're putting on yourself, you are also able to do this better for your teenager. And I'm not saying all labels are bad and we should never label anything. Labels are actually necessary for us to be efficient. Otherwise, we wouldn't have words for anything because words are literally labels. A name is a label, but we just want to be mindful of when they're creating problems or causing us to miss problems. The fourth step is to repeat this. We just want to recognize, observe, look for patterns, what they're creating, ask ourselves what is true. We can look specifically where relationships are not working so well. What label is there? They're always defensive. They never want to talk. And then how are you not seeing this whole person? And I want to give you a bonus tip. Usually what we have labeled other people, especially bad labels, like they're lazy, they refuse to talk, they don't try. Oftentimes, in some way, we are also being that label in our own special way. I see this in coaching all the time. They will say, well, my teenager, they just don't try. And we'll continue to talk and I'll say, well, what have you tried? And they'll be like, well, nothing, because my teenager won't even try. And it's like, okay, so you're both not trying. That's good awareness. And then the last step, which is really important if you feel stuck and this isn't coming easily, is to get help from me or another coach or anybody else that is educated and you feel you connect with. Those are the two important things. When anybody's asking for a coach or a therapist, I always say they need to have two things. One, you need to connect with them, and two, they need to be skilled so that they can actually help you. Then, of course, the nitpicky things like availability and all of that kind of stuff. Those are the two primary things that you want to look at when you're trying to find a coach or a therapist or any kind of professional. Somebody that you can be vulnerable with, that you feel safe with, and somebody that is skilled enough to actually help you. All right, my friend, this is what I have for you. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful week. As always, please reach out. You can review my podcast. You can schedule an appointment with me. DM me on social media and just say hi. It would be fun to interact with you. Have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you next time.
Heather is the one, an expert in the field. She knows her parenting stuff, including how confusing it can be. You've tried it all, and it's a lost cause. Crying in the closet 'cause you failed at being a mom. But think again, there's peace around the corner and there's hope in your hands. Your kids just want your love and you want it from them. So take a pill.